Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Today we are continuing reading the book الأجوبة الجلية في الأحكام الحنبلية, or the clear answer in Hanbali Rulings by Sheikh Musa bin Issa al-Qaddoomi rahimahullah. And in this lesson, inshallah, we'll be covering the ruling of the prayer, its times, and some of the nafil or voluntary prayers. Let us begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا بما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. قال المؤلف rahimahullah, نفع الله به وبعلومه وعلوم مشايخنا في الدارين آمين. So we are now at the section on the ruling of as-salah, or the prayer, and just as a faida or benefit, we mentioned that this book is very much a summary of Dalil al-Talib by al-Imam Mar'i al-Karmi. And if you look at al-Dalil, this section on the ruling of the prayer is actually coming after the shurut, or the conditions of the prayer. And I'm not saying that one way is better, but it's just to highlight this. And I think that the three main sections that we're going to be looking at in today's lesson, they're all kind of out of order as they are in Dalil al-Talib. And this is also just to make it a note in case you have Dalil al-Talib, or one of the explanations or hashia of Dalil al-Talib. Just if you're following the lesson and you want supplementary information and you go to that book or those books, just note that it's going to be kind of in a different order than as we are explaining it here. So the prayer is usually defined as statements and actions or movements that begin with the takbir, saying Allahu Akbar, and are concluded with the taslim, or saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we are continuing, as usual, we're reading from the translation of a Sheikh Khalid Shah, and we're on page 61, question number 50. Upon whom is salat, or the prayer, wajib, or obligatory? And he replies, salat is wajib on every Islamically obligated Muslim who is not in the state of haid or nifas. And inshallah, you remember what we've defined as haid and nifas. As long as the person remains sane, the obligation of as-salah will also remain. So the general obligation of the prayer is coming from the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitabun mawquta, or the prayer is upon the believers at the prescribed times. And also note that when we say it is obligatory for every legally responsible Muslim, it also includes people who they are Muslim, but maybe they don't know about the ruling of as-salah. So, for example, someone who's living in a non-Muslim country, maybe he becomes Muslim, even if the obligation of the prayer is not explained to him. If he later finds out, he should still make up those prayers that he missed. Being ignorant of the prayer does not remove its obligation. And for the woman who is in the state of menstruation or postpartum bleeding, they do not pray, nor do they have to make up prayers that they lost while in that state. If we continue in the book, salat is correct for a person that has reached the age of discernment. Just quickly, rather than correct, I would rather say valid. And he will have a reward for it. It is the duty of the guardian to order him at the age of 7 and hit him at the age of 10 for non-performance. And in parentheses, 10 means the completion of the 10th lunar year. And as always, when we talk about years or ages in the Sharia, we always refer to the lunar year, not the solar year. So here the age of discernment or tamiz is 7 lunar years. So for example, the child who is of the age of 7 lunar years, if he or she prays correctly, then that prayer is valid. Likewise, they will also take the reward for performing that prayer under the general understanding of the verse in the Quran when Allah Ta'ala says, "Man jaa bil hasnati falahu ashru amthaliha." So who comes with a single hasana, he has 10 like it. And this is a general ruling for all type of good deeds. And when we say that at the age of 7 lunar years, the guardian of the child has to order him to do it, ordering also includes teaching him how to do it, and along with the prayer is the tahara. So for example, the wudu or other related issues under tahara. So it's not just ordering the child to do it, but ordering and teaching him to do it if he hasn't been taught beforehand. And when we say hitting or striking the child of 10 lunar years or older who does not perform the prayer, striking the child is not beating the child. Striking the child means just a light strike that doesn't leave a mark and is not on the face. So please don't beat your children if they don't do the prayer. And the author continues, whoever abandons salah, denying it being wajib, becomes a kafir. So the person who denies it being obligatory becomes a kafir. But this is specifically for the person who's born in the Muslim country and should know about it. For people that are maybe born in the non-Muslim countries, I mean, there could be different scenarios, but if they don't know about its obligation, you can't bring this ruling onto them. You have to teach them about the ruling. And I don't want to go more into this issue because basically we don't have a country that's operating Sharia law. So whatever comes after abandoning the prayer, there's really nothing that we can do at this point in time. May Allah change that. Now we're going on to the next section, the times of the salah or the prayer. And as just another faida, as I kind of mentioned before, but in Dalil al-Talib, Imam Mar'i al-Karmi, he has this detail under the conditions of the prayer, because as we'll see, the entering of the time of the prayer is one of the conditions, so he goes into detail there, but here we're going to be talking about it in this section. So it's quite common now, or even more than common, maybe we can even say almost standard, that the prayer times are based on just a list of times that could be coming maybe from the Ministry of Endowments or somewhere else, and this is not correct. We should really be relying on the sun in terms of when we see light, or the type of light we see, and or the length of a shadow, as we will go into more detail. So this is just to highlight it's really the correct thing to do that we try to observe these times according to the light and the shadow, rather than rely on projected lists of prayer times. So the author goes on, number 51, what are the timings of Salah? And he replies, Dhuhr is immediately after the zenith of the sun until the shadow of an object is the same as the object in addition to the shadow that was present at the zenith. So the zenith is basically the time that the sun is directly above you. So, imagine you have like a stake or a stick in the ground. At the time of the zenith, the shadow on the ground is going to be at its shortest amount. So right when you just pass the zenith, and when that shadow is moving from its shortest length to becoming slightly longer, this is when the time of the dhuhr starts. And then that length of the shadow, you add that to when the shadow is the length of the thing that's making the shadow. So let's say it's like 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters. Okay, if it's 20 centimeters tall, when the shadow is 20 centimeters plus that small length of shadow at the zenith, this is when the time of the dhuhr is over. And it is generally preferable to pray the dhuhr at the beginning of its time, with the exception that there is like extreme heat. So many of us are, alhamdulillah, living in more modern kind of environments, inshallah. The issue of extreme heat isn't going to affect us. We have maybe an indoor facility with air conditioning, but subhanallah, we still have a lot of people living in very rural places. So if there is kind of extreme heat that's going to cause a difficulty, then under that circumstance, one can delay the prayer till it's a little bit cooler. And Allah knows best. The author goes on, Asr. And Asr is also known as the Salat al-Wusta. So Asr immediately follows Dhuhr. And the preferred time of Asr is until the shadow of an object is double the object in addition to the shadow that was present at zenith. Then after this is the time of necessity, and it is haram to delay the time of Asr until this time. The time of necessity extends until sunset. So basically, time of Asr starting right after the time of Dhuhr. So we said Dhuhr is ending when the length of the shadow of an object equals the length of the object plus the length of the shadow at the zenith. And then similarly, the time is extending, except this time, of Asr, it's extending or ending, or the preferred time is extending until that shadow is, instead of one length, two lengths of the object plus the length at the zenith. So this, between these two times, is when it is best to pray al-Asr. One can still pray Asr after that until the time of Maghrib, but as the author said, and we just want to emphasize, it is haram to delay it to that time without any reason. And Allah knows best. And even in that preferred time of the Asr, it is better to pray it at the earlier part of the time, the beginning of the time. Then the author goes on, Maghrib is after the setting of the sun until the disappearance of the red twilight, or the red color in the sky. I think this is self-explanatory. Sunset, so sun has gone down below the horizon. This is when al-Maghrib enters the time, until that red light in the sky of the sunset disappears. and because the time of al-Maghrib is quite short, it's preferred to pray it at the beginning of its time. Then the author goes on, Isha is preferable after the disappearance of the red twilight until the end of the first third of the night. This is followed by the time of necessity, which extends until before Fajr. So he doesn't say it exactly directly, but what is meant is that yes, once the red twilight of the sunset disappears, this is the time that Isha starts, and many people don't realize that the Isha is, can start this early, and its preferred time is going from this time until the end of the first third of the night. And the end of the first third of the night doesn't mean that we look at a clock and we just have kind of a random time, but we're talking about the actual, you have to look at the actual time of the night. So maybe where you live, the Maghrib is at 7 o'clock and the Fajr is at 4 o'clock. So you would just divide that into thirds. When the first third is gone, you're past the preferable time to pray al-Isha. Now, while the whole preferred time stretches from the beginning of the time of Isha till the end of the first third of the night, it's most preferable to pray the Isha toward the end of the first third if one can, but if one is tired, it's disliked to sleep and then wake up to pray al-Isha. But if one can make it to that end of the first third, it's better to pray the Isha at that time. And as we said, one can still pray al-Fajr, al-Isha anytime up until before al-Fajr, but it would be disliked to delay it beyond that first third of the night without a valid reason, and Allah knows best. Finally, the author continues, as-Subh or al-Fajr starts from the start of al-Fajr or the true dawn until the sunrise. So this true Fajr refers to a time in the night where there is some light appearing in the sky, but one does not see the sun coming up over the horizon, or as we would say, the sunrise in English. And likewise, one wants to pray the Fajr toward the beginning of its time. The time for Fajr is, like al-Maghrib, also quite short, so it's even better to try to pray it at the beginning of its time. And Allah knows best. And we should mention that one catches the time of a prayer by at least making the takbir al-ihram, saying Allahu Akbar, the opening takbir of the prayer, during the time of the prayer. If at a minimum you have done that, you've caught the time of the prayer, although you would be in some cases very late. But the point is, it's not necessary that you complete the whole prayer during the time of the prayer to actually be considered catching the prayer, but only making the takbir al-ihram at the time of the prayer is sufficient to say that you've caught the prayer. Now we're going to start a short section on the tatawu, or the voluntary prayers. Once again, if you refer to Dalil al-Talib, Imam Mar al-Karmi, he usually has this section after the section on the sujood sahu, or the prostration of forgetfulness, and I think most other books follow this format, but here we're going to take a few of the voluntary prayers. And just to start with, the idea of these voluntary prayers is that they fill any type of deficiency that you've had in the obligatory prayers, And there is a hadith narrated by Imam Ahmed to that effect. So these are all prescribed in the Sharia without being obligatory. So just to be clear, none of what we're mentioning here for these following voluntary prayers, none of them are obligatory. So the author goes on to say, number 52, is Salat Tatawu Sunnah? Which one is the most virtuous? He says Salat Tatawu is Sunnah. The most virtuous are those which are prayed in Jama'ah, so in congregation. The most emphasized is Kusuf, or the eclipse prayer. We're not going to look at it here, and even you will be surprised if you go to fairly advanced books like even Muntal Iradat, they don't really explain this. You can find some of these in more detail in a book like Al-Mughni, but in case you don't know the eclipse prayer, we have featured it on our Twitter channel, and I will try to make a short video about it just to supplement, but in a very brief way. It is a prayer with 2 raka, or 2 full movements of the prayer, but unlike a normal prayer, in each raka you have 2 ruku', or 2 bowings. So you will start the prayer like you normally do, read al-Fatiha and read something. Usually the recitation is long. Then you will make the ruku', you will come back up, but you won't go for sujood. You will then read al-Fatiha again, and then something else that's long. You will make the ruku', and then after the second ruku' in the first rak'ah, then you will make the prostration like any normal prayer. And when you finish the prostration like normal prayer, you get up, and then you do the 2 readings and the 2 ruku' again. And this is generally how you do it. The recitation is generally long, with the exception that the eclipse is short, because you don't want to be continuing praying the eclipse prayer when there's no eclipse. So in the case that it is short, which is sometimes the case, one would then keep the recitation short, but these eclipses are oftentimes long, so there is sufficient time to read something that's longer. This was a very brief description of a kusuf prayer. You can see other sources if you're more interested, inshallah. The author continues, then the istisqa, or drought prayer. So first is kusuf, eclipse prayer. Second, istisqa. The istisqa prayer, also if you don't know about it, just in a very brief summary, is prayed like the Eid prayer. If you don't know the Eid prayer, inshallah we'll eventually get to it. And after the prayer there is a khutbah, or speech, and that khutbah, like the Eid prayer, starts with 7 takbirs, Allahu Akbar. But this is the general format of the istisqa prayer. Then taraweeh, I think we all know taraweeh, what we pray in Ramadan. Then al-witr, I think we also know witr, but we'll explain it inshallah. The author goes on, witr is a minimum of 1 rak'ah and a maximum of 11 rak'ats. I don't want to go too much into the Salat al-Witr, but maybe what we can just add to what the authors mentioned here, the smallest of the most perfect form of the Witr prayer is 3 rak'ah, and the 3 rak'ah consist of praying 2 rak'ah in a complete form, so beginning and finishing with the taslim, saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Then one gets up and prays what we would actually call the witr. Witr means odd, so this is the odd number of the witr. So one would pray the lone raka'ah, which would make it 3, and then after getting up for ruku' from the last raka'ah, one will make a special supplication called al-Qunut. It is also permissible to do that before the ruku'ah, and both forms are mentioned, for example, in Sahih Bukhari, but in the madhab the preferred form is to do it after one makes this dua of qunut, supplication of qunut, and then finishes. So the author continues, its time is between Isha and the start of Fajr. Qunut is done after ruku'ah, however it's permitted before ruku'ah, as I've just explained. So then the author mentions the dua for qunut, and in Arabic, and there are some different forms, but this is the popular form that we see in the fiqh books, and in the more advanced fiqh books you will see even some additional things, but as the author has it here, Allahumma ittana fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barak lana fi ma a'tayt, wa qinna sharra ma qadayt, innaka taqdi wa la yuqda alayk, wa innahu la yudhillu man walayt, wa la yu'izzu man adayt, tabarakta rabbana wa ta'alayt, Allahumma inna na'udu bi ridaka min sakhatak, wa bi afwika min aqubatak, wa bika minka, la nuhsi thana'an alayk, anta kama athnayta ala nafsik, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin an-nabiy al-ummi, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. So, this is translated here as, O Allah, guide us among those whom you have guided, protect us among those who you have protected, befriend us among those whom you have befriended, grant us blessings in what you have given, save us from the evil you have decreed, for indeed you decree and none decrees against you, never is he disgraced by whom you take as a friend, and never does he gain respect with whom you oppose. Blessed and exalted are you, O our Lord. O Allah, we seek refuge in your pardon from your punishment, and we seek refuge in you from you. We are not capable of extolling you as you have extolled yourself. May Allah send salat upon Muhammad, the unlettered prophet, and upon his family and companions. And the author concludes, hands are raised from the beginning of the above dua, and at the end the face is wiped with them. So you can put the hands up, keep them about shoulder level. There are different opinions. Is it better to keep them apart or put them together? Maybe keeping them apart is a stronger opinion. And one keeps the palms up, like toward the sky the whole time. We don't turn them down. I know Sha'fis have this kind of thing. We just keep it up the whole time. Regardless of the type of supplication that it is. And at the end of the dua, the face is wiped. We don't want to go into a big discussion about this, but I know it can be a hot fiqh issue, but this is the method. And maybe we can quickly mention about these voluntary prayers. They are considered the best physical deed or deed of your body after al-jihad, and al-jihad is the literal fighting in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, al-ilm, or knowledge, and this includes both learning and teaching. Then the author goes on, number 53, what are the emphasized rawatib sunnahs? So these rawatib sunnahs are the emphasized sunnahs that are prayed either before and or after the fard obligatory prayers. And the author replies, there are 10 rawatib mu'akkada sunnahs. Mu'akkada is like emphasized. 2 raka before dhuhr, 2 raka after it. So 2 before, 2 after dhuhr. 2 raka after maghrib. 2 raka after isha. 2 raka before al-fajr. It is sunnah to make qada, or that's the makeup of these, and al-witr if they're missed. So once again, it is sunnah to make these up, but you don't have to, but it's emphasized to do so. It is sunnah to pray these sunnah rawatib prayers in the house, meaning as opposed to the masjid. Likewise, it is sunnah to make some type of spacing between the sunnah prayer, of the sunnah rawatibah, and the fard obligatory prayer. This can be getting up, moving to another place, or even speaking. The best of the sunnah rawatibah is the sunnah al-fajr, the sunnah that's before al-fajr. And our mother Aisha radiyallahu anha, she said, لم يكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على شيء من النوافل أشد تعهدا منه على ركعتي الفجر متفق عليه. So in an agreed upon hadith, she said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wasn't on or didn't hold to a nawafil, a supererogatory prayer, more than what he did for the 2 rak'ah of al-fajr. And it is sunnah to make these as light prayers. I think it's also important to mention that one thing people don't realize about the sunnah prayer, the sunnah rawatib, is that one should read something after al-Fatiha. A lot of people just read al-Fatiha. Maybe they're just in the habit, or they're lazy, or they're busy, or out of ignorance. But in the case of al-Fajr, it's recommended to read Surah al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah, and then Surah al-Ikhlas, Qul huwallahu ahad, in the second rak'ah. And one may also read verse 136 from Surah al-Baqarah in the first rak'ah, that starts with قُولُوا آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ, and then in the second rak'ah to read verse 64 from Surah Ali Imran, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالُوا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ. The Shafi'is have the same opinion about this. And for this sunnah rawatib of al-fajr, it is also sunnah that after one prays it, that he lays down on his right side, but shouldn't sleep, but just to lay and rest. Then after this sunnah rawatib of al-fajr, the most preferred is that of al-maghrib. And likewise, it is also sunnah to read Surah al-Kafirun and Surah al-Ikhlas in the 2 rak'ahs there. And then the remaining of the sunnah rawatib, they have the same level of preference. And finally, the last question that we're taking today, number 54, how many rak'ats is taraweeh, and when is it performed? And the author replies, taraweeh prayers consist of 20 rak'ah. They are prayed in twos, meaning 2 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah, 2 rak'ah, during Ramadan between Isha and Witr. It is preferred that the sunnah of Isha are prayed before taraweeh. Also, I know the number of raka in Salat al-Taraweeh is a hot issue, but have no doubt that it is 20 raka, and if you are praying less than 20 raka, there could be some debate if you are even praying taraweeh. If you are interested in the issue more, I'll put a link of a video that we previously did where you can hear more about the opinions of the scholars and the evidence, but have no doubt it's 20 raka. And one thing I want to add, based on what we mentioned about the dua of qunut, I just remember this when I see the footnote in this book. But if you understand Arabic, you will notice that this dua is being read in the plural form. So, oh Allah, guide us. Now, many of the books say if it's just you praying the witr by yourself, you should read the qunut in the singular form. Oh Allah, guide me. Allahumma ihdani fi man hadayt, instead of ihdana fi man hadayt. But there is some debate on this issue. Some of the scholars say if you make the intention to be praying for the ummah, and you use the plural form, there could be a great reward in that. Allah knows best, but it's not such a serious issue for one to worry about. And as I said, there are different opinions on it, and inshallah, whichever way you do with a sincere heart, you will be rewarded for. So this lesson has gone a little bit long. Let's conclude here. The next lesson will be starting on the shurut, or the prerequisites of the prayer. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.